I guess you could call this a redux, because this is what we were talking about the first time you were on Friday Night Folk.
Yeah.
It was this exact article that you had written, and now you got it published.
Yeah.
The Show Bear Family Circus.
First article ever published, first anything ever published by me,
Yeah,
which was kind of cool feeling.
Definitely. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's not an insignificant feat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm reading it going like, man, a lot of this, like, I have completely reassessed, and a lot of this is very different. And
yeah. So that was one, like, really, that was something that I found like kind of odd about it too, is that because it was published in April. Oh, you're right. Yeah. And we recorded that interview, like, I feel like it was like a year before at
2
least.
years.
Yeah, right. It was
before,
like a long time. And what it really was I had gotten laid off my job. I was looking for work. I was like just digging into my college portfolio, just like stuff that I had written that, like, I knew was like at least kind of decent, submitting it. And that article was one of the things that it ended up getting picked up. And it was just so, like, it was like a odd read, like, to just read about, because I was rereading it too, and to just read about live shows during a pandemic. Like, it just seemed like an oddly timed article, but I was also really happy to, like, have it published. So, couldn't complain that much. But
yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. And also, I think just like the philosophies that I've developed around those same things over the years, like as far as like the anti-exploitation angle to it. For those of you who are listening, if you want to read this article, it's by Quinn Cavaco. It's called A DIY Show, I believe.
A DIY project.
A DIY project.
Yes.
And it's published on the Show Bear Family Circus website. And in it, I had answered a lot of your questions about what makes a DIY show a DIY show. What is the DIY ethic, and why is it important to adhere to that as a community putting on performances that are not focused on profit and are focused more about collective experience and collective, equity in the experience. And so I'm reading that going like, this was back when it was mostly about music for me. And I think that I have come to see the DIY scene, maybe not the DIY scene. I have come to see the DIY ethic as something that necessarily needs to be about more than just music, And I think so often you associate it with a music scene or an art scene, and that's fine. But like, we're just talking about the building and stuff, and so much of DIY shows and DIY experiences are put together by the builders,
right?
And are like curated by people who like just need to use their hands to make something on the fly, or like have to there's so much work that goes on behind the scenes that I'm like reading this going like, where are the other people who should be mentioned in this? Like, where are the other roles that people play? Like, they're completely absent from this point of view. So it's interesting to see this, and like, having been distant from it now because of the pandemic for over a year, having kind of gained a perspective of like, if we go back to this lifestyle, we need to remember that it's about more than just the music, and it's about more than just like these surface level labels that we've applied to DIY culture. And that, like, if that's the case, it needs to be a culture. It needs to be centered around, I think, more than just the art, more than just the end product, and centered around the experience itself.
Yeah, no, especially because like I feel like that's really the artist's main goal, is like the experience. Because while it is like what they create and like their outlet, like that creative outlet for them, like it really also, like you're saying, it's that experience, like to allow other people to experience this creation along with you. And that's one thing that struck me with the DIY scene. Because when I was interviewing you for this too, like that was really just kind of like getting myself like immersed in it, like for the first time. Like I had never been exposed to this until around that time in my life too. But like you were saying, like I slowly understand that like it really is just the experience for everyone. And that's kind of like what art in like creating things is for me too. And I suppose for so many other people too, is to just be able to have other people experience this thing with you.
Yeah, it's like I was talking about in a recent podcast. I was talking about this experience I had going up to Brattleboro, Vermont to see a folk singer called Marie Sue.
Mm-hmm.
And it was right after Woolen Mills had been shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of this house show, but it was advertised as the Brattleboro Barn. So I didn't know what to expect really.
Right.
And it turned out to be a barn in someone's backyard that they had decked out in candles and Christmas lights. And it was really,
that's kind of cool.
It was a really nice atmosphere.
Yeah.
But I get there, I'm the first one to show up because I'm ever punctual. And the first one there, the owner of the house said to me, because I was just kind of hanging out, they were like offering me tea and everything. They're like, this show's not going to start for a while, but people are going to start showing up soon. And they asked me, would you build a fire in the backyard so that you can kind of like, we can direct people back there. They'll have something to gather around so that they're not kind of in the way during sound check and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I did. And like in the moment, it was a little bit of an awkward experience to me. Strange place, don't know any of the people. I'm not super good at meeting new people.
Mm-hmm.
But driving home, I realized that was exactly the experience that I needed to have, because I had become so attached to my own venue, my own space. And look at what I just did to help someone else curate their own experience with their space. And it's not about me. You know, and I was like, gosh, I really needed that, I think.
But it's so cool to be able to like help out with like a show, even though you're not expecting to help out with the show, like you're inadvertently kind of helping out by putting together this fire.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Exactly. And I think like leading up to that, as a person who has worked in the DIY culture a lot, you know, I had kind of developed this theory that a big part of it is being able to answer when called upon.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that I had ever had to put that into action in such an urgent and unexpected way before that night. And so I was like, yep, that's answering when called upon. That's exactly what that is. Like in my situation, like if I wanted to build some walls at Woolen Mills, or like put up some murals or whatever, like I know the people that I'm going to call to help me out on any given project. And I hope that they say yes. You know, I hope that they respond graciously and that they're willing to help. But that's kind of the point that I'm getting at, is that like
it's collaborative.
Those same people like are musicians or like are artists, you know, but they're willing to help do a little bit of labor. They're willing to help just like contribute to the periphery, you know, and not just be like, not be the ones on stage, you know?
Because it really is a community too. Like, because at the end of the day, they know if they're helping you out, I know in a heartbeat, you're going to help them out with whatever sort of project they need. And I feel like that's really the beauty of kind of like this DIY kind of culture, with just creating things, whether it be shows or even just recordings or whatever projects you may have. And even with the murals too, that's like for a music event, you're hosting a music event and you're also giving exposure to artists as well, you know? So it's just everyone kind of working together to create this experience, to showcase their art, you know, really showcase their creativity, their outlets that they're making to show off to people. And they're able to create these spaces where people can observe what they're creating. And I think that's really I think that's one of the greatest things about it. And through the pandemic, one of the things I've been trying to do is just trying to make my own recordings. And I think like just making my own demos like at home and stuff. And I think like through doing that, that's really taught me that, because it's been super tough. I haven't been able to finish anything. And I'm just thinking like, what's the difference between like now and like when I was actually like finishing projects? And I think the big difference is really I don't work with other people, you know, whether it be like producers or
Mm.
other musicians, other drummers, other bassists, what have you. Like the pieces that I can't do, working with other people that I can bounce ideas off of and work with. So I really feel like it's just full circle in all areas. Just the collaboration makes it easier and it makes it more fluid. And I think it's part of what really makes uh, the DIY culture as fun as it is for me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Something
Mm,
else I've been thinking about. There's this issue around DIY culture where, like, ask anyone you know who has had involvement in a DIY scene or like has like lived at a co-op house or something. Like
mm,
any one of those people has had um like some kind of experience with sexual assault or like
mm,
impropriety of some kind. And I started thinking, is that a systemic problem? Like, is there something systemically wrong with how we approach DIY concerts, the DIY art scene, and what could it be? And I have a lot of thoughts on this that, like, I'm not necessarily ready or willing to say on mic
mm.
just yet, because I think I should do some writing on it and flesh out the ideas a little bit more. But
Yeah.
I've really been thinking about, like, this is going to start up again soon after the pandemic. How do we make it safe?
Mm.
And how do we spread the word that, like, these particular facets of it have been unsafe in the past?
Right.
And I'm not entirely sure what those facets are right now, but I think and it definitely has something to do with the community element not being stressed or not being, I don't want to say enforced, but encouraged.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's often not seen as a community. There's so many possible answers to how this might be a systemic problem.
Absolutely.
And I'm certainly not putting it upon myself to solve it, but it's what I want to be contemplating now, but I don't know that I am contemplating the right things about it. And I don't know if
Mm.
other people have answers at the ready. And if anybody does, I would love to hear about it.
Mm.
But like, as I've been thinking about, do I want to run another show space? Do I want to be a showrunner again in the future? I don't think I do. I want to be an event producer in the future, but I don't want to host specifically music events. I would love
Mm.
to keep hosting events that celebrate DIY culture, but I don't exclusively care about DIY music anymore.
Mm.
Like, I want you to show up and build something, you know? Like, I
Build
want
something
to
for the people.
almost like a craft fair, man. Honestly,
That'd be
like
cool.
I would love to do like craft fairs where music is like an intentional, integral part of it.
Mm.
You know,
That was
that
like
kind of thing.
Together Fest. That was actually
Yeah,
my last show I ever played was at Together Fest.
I
But that
think
was like
the
that. There
last time I
was
saw you too.
Yeah, I believe
Yeah,
so. But that's that there was that was like they were all selling crafts, and that was pretty cool to just like hop around and like help out people that are just making things and just being able to support what they're making, and like they're here to my music or they're there to hear my music, so they're inadvertently kind of supporting me too. And
yeah,
it is like a cool little thing, cool little community part of the community.
yeah. I've been brainstorming this kind of thing with some other people, and I keep using that as an example. Like, can you picture Together Fest, except instead of there being kind of like a gauntlet of vendors going down the center of the room, can you imagine if all those vendors and all of those craftspeople, like, their work was an integral part of the performance itself,
Hmm.
and like of the like you have a fiber artist with tapestry hanging behind the stage that they made themselves and stuff like that, you know? Like, I
That'd be
love
cool.
the idea of actually celebrating DIY culture
Right.
with a festival or any kind of event like that,
Hmm.
rather than just, hey, we're doing a DIY music fest and it's going to be like sloppily put together and it's just, you know, it's a bunch of punks showing up and being punks and like,
Right. Right.
I have
Acting like
nothing against
creeps.
that, but
Yeah.
I think I'm a little bit done with that expectation, being there. And like I would like to raise the bar, at least for myself, to put on more events that that are celebratory of different areas of interest and expertise, rather than just, you know, it's for the music.
Yeah.
Because I think that, like, I'm not professing that that is one of the systemic problems, is that like it's about an end result that doesn't acknowledge the other people there. But, you know, put a person on stage playing music, and that's where the focus is. Like, why aren't we putting the focus on the rest of the community? You know, that's the first thing that comes to mind for me. And I'm sure that there are other things that I'll land on eventually. There are probably some articles about this that I can find.
I was gonna say it could be cool too to even have like a metal worker, like you were saying, like a tapestry mural artist, like creating something while this is all like happening. Like while like there's a festival going on, and like you just have like an auction on like whatever the piece is, and like so that way they're able to be compensated through their art, and like they can sell that piece. And like I think that, like, as just like a consumer of art, I think that would be like a really cool idea to just like show up and be like, wow, that's really cool. I would pay money for that. And like get into like some sort of it. That'd be like a cool little space, I think.
Yeah, I would love that. And also like at Ralph's Diner in Worcester, there's like an open mic poetry thing. Have you ever been there?
That was like when I first started recording and like doing shows, that was like on my list of places to check out. And I actually never ended up, I don't know why I never ended up making it out there, but I never did. But I am familiar with Ralph's Rock Diner.
Yeah. So at on Monday nights, and I'm assuming that this will resume probably over the summer, they do an open mic poetry reading type thing. It's divided into two halves. And in the middle and at the end, they always have a feature player, you know, like whether it might be a musician, it might be like a really good slam poet, and they always have somebody doing live art. So throughout the entire night, there's somebody like next to the stage, not prominently positioned, but like someone
you
doing art
him.
next to this. Yeah. And at the end of the night, they auction off whatever they've painted.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So like that concept exists and is really cool. And I'd love to see that happen with more crafts, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is really cool. Yeah, I've always meant to make it out to Ralph's Rock Diner. It seems really fun to even just go check out a show there too, because they used to host live music. But it is such a bummer too. That's one thing I've just been longing to, is just go see live music, like go see a band or something like that.
Yeah.
With the wiffle ball thing, that was speaking of featured artists, that was like one thing I've been like saying that we should try to do this season, is like, because we do like 2 games a night, so like in between games just like fit in an artist. And my buddy was like, he was like, well, you play music, why don't you go out there and you like, I was like, no, that's not why I was saying this. Like, I wasn't saying this so I could just like get myself like a 15-minute time slot. Like, I think it would be cool to like promote other artists, as well as like any sort of crowd that they might draw in. Like, it's one of those things where it helps out both them and us, because we both kind of share a crowd. But I think like even like fitting a live performance anywhere, I've learned, I think it's like it's beneficial to everyone, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Like I've also been following this YouTuber named Jimmy DiResta. He has a big property in upstate New York, and he hosts events where people can come and like take a class in blacksmithing or take a class in like whatever kind of trade, and he'll get someone who's a master of that trade to come and like teach the class for a weekend. So it's a weekend of like different workshops and different classes that people can take. And when he posts like vlogs about it, and there are always people who like bring fiddles and guitars and are just kind of like providing the musical entertainment, probably not getting paid to do it, but just like they're taking a class and they'll figure like, oh, I bring my instrument everywhere with me, that kind of person. And, you know, they show up and it just, that becomes like an integral part of the event. Like there is music in the background, but that's not the purpose of the event. I want to do something between that and
Mhm.
Together Fest. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I like
Right.
the idea of providing a space for people to come and learn how to DIY, you
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
and not just show off how I can DIY, but
Right.
I want to foster a learning space as well.
Right. And
And
that's
I,
kind of the idea of like trying to book spaces where like coffee houses or something like that. Like you're trying to like book spaces where you know people are coming for this, but they're gonna hear your music. Like that would
yeah,
work out kind of for everyone because like wow, there's probably gonna be people that come for the music. They're going to be exposed to these people that are bringing their craft. But wow, there's also people that are going to be coming to just kind of shop around the crafts. They're also going to get a little bit of exposure to these DIY musicians. So
yeah,
that is
yeah,
like a cool, like, yeah, solution, I would say. Because I feel like a lot, like we've talked about this before, people get stuck in those coffee houses, they get stuck in the
sure,
restaurants
yeah,
playing the songs and nobody really hears them. They get lost in the noise. But a space like this,
yeah,
that's working where you're able to kind of do something beside listen to the music, but you're also hearing that music and you're
right.
getting to listen to something like that.
Yeah. And
That's
I
cool. I
think
like that
that's
idea.
also something I'd have to figure out is like, can what I'm talking about be conceived as a listening room in any way?
Mm,
Because as we've talked about before, I really value a good listening room.
mm,
And it could be that I end up doing something like this and also um like volunteering to run shows at a place like the Hearing Room that already just
mm,
like has an established listening room and does kind of a weekly rotation of different kinds of events and concerts and stuff.
mm,
And I would love to get involved in a space like that if I can't run one myself. But I think I'm mostly finished running just music shows
mm.
and or just music events.
Yeah.
So if I can't make it a listening room on my own, then I'll just volunteer to listening room.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah,
Problem
no,
solved.
I remember talking about that people get
Yeah.
stuck in the coffee houses and the bars. And yeah, and I think they're just like environments where people that don't absolutely breed cynicism, but I've seen them breed cynicism because people get
Mm,
like all kind of fiery about the amount of attention they're getting and the amount of, and it's valid, you
mm,
spend so much on gas driving to the place and so many hours performing in the place and so many hours, practicing and warming up as a musician
mm,
and writing and trying your best to master a craft. And at the end of the day, if you don't get the recognition that you need or even the income that you need out of that, then that's
mm,
really disconcerting and that's disheartening. So that cynicism is valid and not at all unfounded, but we just need to create a different sort of expectation around like what musical entertainment means,
mm.
and what it is and what value it has to us.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm.